Lorosenko said Alex Pereira should fight Carlos Ulberg before moving to heavyweight. It's a really good point. It's a really good point. And you want to know the problem? Allow me to condescend and tell you where you currently stand on that idea. You're looking at it and thinking, regardless of how good Carlos Ulberg may or may not be, he is not a big enough name. He's just not a big enough name. If Alex Pereira, the sports top star, can do anything else with somebody else, that's going to be a much bigger fight. Now, you're not totally wrong, but what is a big fight is going to be redefined by the time Alex Pereira fights again. Alex Pereira will not fight again in the pay-per-view era. Alex Pereira may never fight on pay-per-view again. We have not been armed with that information. Alex Pereira will not fight on ESPN again. Make sure you take that into consideration. Because your acknowledgement of what a big fight is, my acknowledgement of what a big fight is, things are going to change. The biggest fights back in the Jack Johnson era were not watched at all. They were listened to by kids hovering around a transistor radio. Now, I'm just sharing, the world is going to be different. The world in MMA and the way that we view the business. Bit of a sidebar. Here's the deal. And here's where Laura's point is the strongest. Legacy. Hindsight. Allow me to give you an example. George St. Pierre leaves 170 pounds. Robbie Lawler comes in and takes over. We never saw that match. So then you just start to wonder. Oh, I didn't know Robbie was this good. How long has Robbie been this good? Okay, one example. More recent example. Khabib cleans out 155 pounds, allegedly. On further review, the number 4 ranked fighter who Khabib never matched up with, Charles Oliveira, rises to the top. It turned out we were wrong. It turned out Charles was not number 4. Charles was the next best thing and possibly the best thing. And so you just start to relook at that. And that was a very real conversation until the meeting with Islam. By example, Charles had 2 common opponents to Khabib. Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Charles finished them collectively in 63 seconds faster than Khabib collectively finished them. What do you want to do with that, right? What do you want to do with that info? But I'm sharing, had Charles beaten Islam, had Charles stayed on top, if Charles was still the champ right now, just for example, you would start to look back on the idea that Khabib had cleaned out the division. You'd say, wait a minute, these guys are the same age. They fought at the same time. They never matched up. And now this guy who looks so wonderful, and it just creates an idea. It's nothing more than that. But the greats, the true greats, the elites, the Alex Pereiras of the world, they're fighting for something different. They're fighting for something that we can't understand. Because we just weren't experienced with that level of success. Alex Pereira was the best of a different sport before you ever saw him on television. He had taken over his craft of kickboxing. I mean, imagine this success. He takes over 185 pounds. He leaves it. He takes over 205 pounds. He's now got his eye on taking over heavyweight, and there's nobody confident that he can't do it. Imagine that level of success. You're now fighting for something different. It's not money anymore. It's not championships. It's something different. And some of these greats, it's very annoying, quite frankly, to hear them talk about it. They talk about legacy. And legacy, while being annoying, is only something that you can look at on that level after you've done everything else. And in fairness, Pereira has. And by the way, Pereira has actually not talked about legacy. I'm attempting to prove a point for you that while Carlos Ulberg is not the biggest name, I don't argue for that he's a bigger name. John Jones or Tom Aspinall or Surreal Gun, should he shock the world? In hindsight, he could be. And that's just where a little bit of the issue comes. A little bit of the issue of I've already cleaned it out and I gotta go. It can sound very accurate right now. But should Pereira leave? Should Ulberg go knock out his next 3 opponents, one of which would be Ankalaev, one of which would be Yuri Prohaska? I'm just sharing for you. Laura's point, and her larger point, wasn't talking about bringing you a big fight. She wasn't talking about doing a pay-per-view blockbuster. She's talking about to the integrity of the sport and the rankings. And before you come up with the notion that he has cleaned out a division, he's very close. He's even very close to having fought a lot of guys the second time. But he hasn't quite cleaned out the division. Now, again, much as I'm arguing that Ulberg could rise, it could go the other way. Pereira could leave. Ulberg runs into Prohaska. He runs into Ankalaev, right? These common opponents. It doesn't go his way. I get that. But that fight would be in the category more of a fine wine, where it would look better with time.